All right, now we're getting somewhere live in Alpharetta, Georgia. We're at Hotel Avalon, where our mobile studio set up. As you know, the John Fredericks Show goes around the world to bring you the action. We're in Alpharetta, Georgia. This is kind of fun. I'm going to take a picture at the bottom of the hour, but with us is Jenny Beth Martin. Jenny Beth, honorary chairman, Tea Party Patriots Action. And she's happy to get out of the house, looking spectacular, Jenny, as always. Also joining us at a round table. I can't even say this with a straight face.
Oh, John.
Why do I start laughing? Vernon Jones, state representative, Democrat.
Dave Chappelle. It has Dave Chappelle on live.
Vernon Jones is with us. He's a Democratic state representative. I go back with Vernon for, 25 years or something. And great friend of mine. We've always stayed in touch, and I like hanging with him. And he was CEO of DeKalb County for 2 terms. Did a great job there. Straightened it out. It was a mess when he took it over. He's a great businessman. Democrat, did that. Then he ran for U.S. Senate against the whole Democratic establishment went bananas. He almost beat him. If he won that runoff against little Jimmy Martin back in, I think it was 2010?
2008.
Oh, boy, I got to go back. He'd have been senator. He'd have beaten Saxby Chambliss. And then he ran for sheriff. But now he's state representative, and he's running for re-election. But he endorsed Trump in 2020, and then the party, once again, wants to throw him out. But I got to get into all that. But I got to tell you, you know one of the best press conferences I ever attended? You probably don't remember this. You lost the runoff to little Jimmy Martin, a very liberal guy, couldn't possibly win. Chambliss beat him in that runoff. But you had a press conference at your DeKalb County headquarters, and like 8 press people showed up. And this is the best press conference, Jenny Beth, I'd ever been to. So we go in there, and there's a mic set up, and Vernon Jones comes in, and he says, let me show you how a real news press conference is done. And then he gets up there and he spends 30 minutes nonstop blasting the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, WSB, NBC, CBS, calling them all up. He made fake news famous before it was fake news. Remember that?
Like it.
Press conference, you blasted, and you were calling out their name, and you were calling out articles they had written that were lies.
Yeah, it was fact.
And I was laughing.
Well, John, you know.
And then of course you ended by saying, and John Fredericks with the Beacon is here, the only honest paper in Georgia.
And
that's why I remember it.
Well, John, I remember you because you're like me. You call balls and strikes, and you recognize me for my record, and you didn't get caught up in the fake news. And when you reported on me, you asked me tough questions. You put me on the spot, but it was no gotcha moments. It wasn't that you were trying to overlook my record and get into the weeds with foolishness and nonsense. And so I am honored to be here today and be a part of your morning broadcast with Jenny Beth. And I got to tell you, John, for you to come back to the Atlanta area with your show after all those years when you had the Beacon and you left, but you're back home with this national radio show, it just shows how you've been blessed by God, and your message has resonated among so many households. You've made a difference, John. I mean, just think, I remember when you were shutting down, and we did have that recession, and it was about survival. It impacted me too. I was coming out of the office. We all had problems. It was
painful.
And just to see you come back, though, 12 years later, bigger, better, stronger, wiser, that's a blessing on you and your family.
Heavier.
And but you look a lot better, John. You look wealthier now, man. But anyhow, John, thank you again. And you mentioned that I was up for re-election. Actually, John, I had intended, after I endorsed President Trump and received all that backlash, I intended not to complete my term. But then when I made that decision, that announcement, the outcry and outpouring from fellow DeKalb County folks that I represented, fellow Georgians, the American people across the country, I mean, actually around the world, the messages and emails and support, don't quit, at least finish your term. And at the same time, John, my mom was buried that same week. And it was a lot on me at that time, but that inspiration I got from the American people, I decided to stay on the battlefield and finish my term, and I'm going to do everything I can to help President Trump get reelected. My party, the Democratic Party, has shown a lot of bigotry over the years. They have put illegals before the American people with these socialist ideas and far left-right agenda. I just cannot, in good conscience, be a part of that. And there's no question, I support Donald Trump for two reasons. One, his strong leadership. For two, he's results-oriented. What he said he was going to do, he got it done. When you look at the economy, record number of unemployment across the board, but certainly the impact it had on the African-American community. When you look at what he did for historical black colleges, I happen to be a proud graduate of North Carolina Central University in Durham. And John, you know this, and I'm sure you know too, Jenny Beth, but to your audience, historical black colleges were important because they were the breeding grounds when blacks could not go to majority schools.
Right.
And they produced some of the best in academia, in politics, in science, in religion, in economics. Maynard Jackson, who was the first African-American mayor of Atlanta, went to undergrad at Morehouse, went to law school at North Carolina Central University. And we can just go around the world and see those graduates. So when the funding was cut by the previous administration and colleges had to come year in and year out try to lobby to get in the budget, President Trump came and said, wait a minute, something's not right here. He restored a lot of the funding that was cut, and he said it didn't make sense that you all have to come year in and year out to try to lobby to get funds in there. So he wrote it into law. And it's interesting, we can put Planned Parenthood in the budget every year, and they don't have to come and fight for it. Why can't you do these historical educational institutions? And so I appreciate the president doing that. Among many other things, free trade. He's letting China know, look, you're terrorists, you're not fair, I'm going to take it to you. The Jewish community, when he said we're going to move the embassy, he got it done. When you look at the trade agreements between Mexico and Canada, that NAFTA agreement was not good for America. He changed it. So President Trump is pro-America. He puts America first. And I recognize, and John, actually, I got a speech I was given at the end of that runoff debate. Back then I was talking about immigration reform.
That's right. That was a long time.
And about putting America first.
Right.
And so if you listen to my speech, it's the exact same. It's on my Twitter page at Rep. Vernon Jones, but it talks about. You would think I was Donald Trump talking back then.
But that was 2008.
2008, yeah.
So, I'm going to get to the bottom of the hour news here in a couple of minutes. I've got Jenny Beth Martin is with us, Honorary Chairman, Tea Party Patriots Action. We're in Alpharetta, Georgia. And Jenny Beth, just before I get to the bottom of the hour, I want to highlight something you just said. You said that 500 businesses were going under by the minute?
500, on average, over 500 Americans are losing their livelihood every single minute.
That this goes on.
Every minute it goes on. I took the unemployment numbers and divided it by the number of days we've been in this. And it's 26.5 million Americans is so big it's hard to wrap your mind around. 1 million Americans every business day is still hard to wrap your mind around. But when you say over 500 a minute, you realize we don't have a minute to waste on this.
It's insane. By the way, I just found out the Los Angeles Lakers got $4.6 million from the PPP fund. I guess it's just unbelievable how that thing has been raped by these big businesses. It was supposed to be for small businesses. It got absolutely hammered. Again, joining us roundtable, Vernon Jones, Democratic State Representative, DeKalb County, Georgia. Jenny Beth Martin, Honorary Chairman, Tea Party Patriots Action. Just sent a picture out of them. Jenny Beth, let's and Vernon, let's get to the coronavirus, the lockdowns, businesses shuttered. A lot of studies coming out. One from the University of Southern California, Stanford, New York City did one. Now we've got one in Los Angeles for homeless people, saying that the infection rate is probably 85x higher than we thought, which drives the IFR or the fatality rate way down. And the Stanford and USC studies are saying likely COVID-19 has got a fatality rate of 1 out of 1,000 who has it to 2 out of 1,000, which is on a par or just above the common flu. And if you take out the people that it attacks fatally, which is elderly people, those with compromised health, the numbers come even lower. I thought we were supposed to go on the data, but now we're not going on the data because the data doesn't meet their narrative, which is shut the economy down, put people on welfare, get dependent on the government, tank it, and beat Trump.
That is.
Am I right?
It certainly seems that way, and I think that the more that we find out about this virus, the more we're going to see that people have been exposed to it, and they don't even know that they have had it. We know that that's happening. We know that from the testing. We know it can be asymptomatic, especially in the people who are not at high risk. And I think that's part of the tricky thing about the virus is that people have it and they don't know, and they wind up spreading it. So I understand the need to protect those at high risk and to make sure our hospital system was able to handle any peak in surge capacity. But we're able to do that now, and it's time to start opening our communities back up.
Vernon?
Yeah, John, what disappoints me more than anything else, and I'll let the universities and others do their studies, but I'm looking at it from the political side. This issue has become a political issue, which I regret because people's public safety and lives are at stake. When you now want to blame the president, or you call the president a racist because he said the Chinese flu, which is where it came from, that's what's disappointing to me. In order to mainstream media, mainstream liberal media, what they're doing to the president, they're using this to try to defeat him in the upcoming election, and that's sad. And I just hope that, I understand the president just made the decision maybe not to hold those daily press conferences. They didn't like it. CNN stopped covering it for a moment because they thought they saw his numbers were increasing. And I heard a young lady yesterday ask the president one of the most crazy and stupidest questions about how many people been killed, and equating that to how many people that were killed during the Civil War, and should he be reelected if that amount of people die. Where's the election coming into the deaths? And so that's the sad thing about it. But, John, this president, I believe, is doing the best he can. No other president has dealt with this in modern time. But he's doing a good job between helping to get supplies and tools and resources out there where it's needed across the country, working with state and local governments, balancing the public safety as well as the economy. And you have to balance, and he's doing it in a moderate way. And he's allowing governors to kind of govern themselves in a sense with basic federal guidelines, because one size does not fit all. Having run a government, I know how important it is. What may be going on in my government, in my county, may not be this in my state, may be different from another state, another county. So I just hope we can kind of come back, American people, just get past the blame game and recognize that we're trying to come together and unite as one and get through this period. And President, I think he's doing a good job getting us through.
So, Vernon, let me ask you this and get Jenny Beth to weigh in. So, here's what doesn't make sense to me, right? So you have Republican governors in red states like Brian Kemp saying, okay, I've seen the data, and I'm going to open up for business. Too many people are suffering. Too many businesses are being shuttered. Families are being destroyed. There's drug overdose, alcohol abuse, all the things that goes with not having a job. 30 million people on the unemployment line. So he's opening the state. Abbott in Texas going to open it. Tate Reeves opening it in Mississippi. Hutchinson in Arkansas, all red states. Yet the blue states, swing states, Pennsylvania, Wolf, Wisconsin, Evers, I can go on, Minnesota, they're keeping it shut down. They got all the same, Virginia, my state, they get all the same data. Why?
Well, John, again, that's where politics has taken the forefront over what's truly best for the American people. I served with Brian Kemp. Now, as a matter of fact, I've served under 4 governors. Brian Kemp is as solid as Stone Mountain. He's a small businessman. He's a family man. He understands the working people every day who need to or want to get back to work. Businesses have been lost. They may not ever open up again. And so he's taken a methodical approach based on listening to the science, looking at the science, listen to public health officials, his advisors, and he's doing what I call a gradual move forward. We cannot continue to have businesses closed. We cannot continue to just shut down America. We're going to have to move forward. And I see John coming in your studio, Senator Brandon Beach. he would agree with me too, as a business person, used to be with the chamber, that people want to work. Small businesses want to get things going. But we know we have to strike a delicate balance between that and public safety. That's what this president is doing. That's what our Governor Brian Kemp is doing. And I'm seeing local governments starting to do the same thing. The mayor of Stonecrest out in DeKalb County just endorsed what Brian Kemp is doing because he wants to open back up for businesses in his city too. And so I think we're heading the right direction with this modeled approach. We didn't all shut down all at once. We can't open up all at once. So you're seeing America starting to come back.
I'm getting very suspect because I see what the Republican red state governors are doing, especially Brian Kemp here in Georgia, where we are, Jenny Beth. But then you look at the blue state governors, and especially those in swing states, and they want to keep things locked down. I mean, I look at Virginia. We have no numbers that justify sheltering in place, closing businesses. 400 people have died out of 8.5 million. Over 100 of those in 2 nursing homes in a single area. It just doesn't make any sense. The number, they said, hospital systems are going to get overrun. We got 5,000 in Virginia. We got 5,000 open beds for COVID-19. Hospitals are laying people off. Then they said, there's no ventilators. Virginia right now is at only 22% of ventilator capacities. They got 78% of ventilators. Everything they say, then they said we have to flatten the curve. Well, we did flatten the curve. Everything they say is not good enough. Then it was testing. Now we're doing testing. Well, now it isn't testing. Now we need contact tracing. Why are these Democratic governors? Here's what I want to ask you, Jenny Beth, straight up. Why are these Democratic governors in these swing states keeping things locked down when they got the same evidence Kemp does, Abbott does, Tate Reeves does?
Well, I do want to point out that the governor of Colorado is reopening, and much of what he's doing is very similar to what is happening in Georgia.
But he got no news over it.
Well, he didn't get any news over it, and he didn't get any flack over it. But you also haven't heard very much about it, and I think that is, part of that is a politicization that the media does about this disease. They want it to divide us. They don't. And I guess it makes sense. The media needs eyeballs watching their shows so they can get ad revenue. While all these Americans are losing their livelihoods, they're worried about the eyeballs and their business's bottom line. But one thing that I heard that the mayor of Washington, D.C. said, and this affects Virginia and Maryland, the mayor of Washington, D.C. said this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make changes, the structural changes in Washington, D.C. to create equity. And
isn't that sick?
And I'm thinking, you've got people who are losing their livelihoods. You've got school children who are not even getting, in Georgia, we're trying to make sure that the kids still get lunches who are not in school. I've heard that, I don't know if it's actually accurate or not, but that they're getting pizza. The kids who are on the school lunch programs are getting pizza. I mean, it just, the parents whose kids are not in school are having trouble working. The kids aren't getting the education that they need. People are not able to earn the money that they need. And that money provides food on their table, a roof over their head, clothes on their back. It's money that helps them have a life and helps them be able to enjoy life. And right now, these governments are being so overbearing, they're denying that to people.
And a footnote to that, John, that pot is boiling right now. People are tired of being at home. You're starting to see protests. You're starting to see people want to get back to work. They want to try to recover their business, what's left of it. And the media, actually, they're making less news about that as opposed to these governors opening up and the Republican governors opening up. And it's like it's going to jeopardize the American people. It's going to create even more problems. The liberal media has really made this thing worse than what it should be. They made it political. They team up with the Democratic Party. This whole thing is political. It's about defeating Donald Trump. They do not want Donald Trump to get us through this pandemic. They do not want him to be reelected, and they're willing to divide this country even more just for the sake. They hate him just that much, and that is disturbing.
So the only way they beat him is by keeping the economy tanked.
Yes.
No jobs, 35 million people unemployed. Now we've got Nancy Pelosi yesterday saying, well, here's a good opportunity now for Americans to get a general basic income, which when the one guy that ran for president had that as platform, Yang,
Yeah.
right? He got basically, he got laughed off the stage. That was 6 months ago. Now a basic income for, I guess, $2,000 a month. You just get it for, I know, being here. And, of course, that'll go to illegal.
You don't have to work.
You don't have to work.
You can get money. Don't have who wouldn't want that?
Why bother to work?
Some people are getting more money
in
now.
Scandinavia, and it failed.
Some are getting more money now than before when they were working.
Yeah,
And that's abuse.
it is abuse. And then there are unintended consequences. They may be doing this for purely pure motives. It may be completely pure on their part. I don't think that it is, but let's just say that it is. The fact is there are unintended consequences to those kind of actions. Look what's happening to our food supply right now. We have crop that's rotting on the vines. We have hog farmers that cannot get their hogs processed. We have dairy farmers that are putting washing milk down the drain right now. And you have 26.5 million people unemployed. Probably on Thursday we'll hear it's 30 million people unemployed. People standing in lines waiting to get food from food banks. And we're disrupting and creating interruptions in our food supply. And those small farmers, those family farms, may wind up, because of cash flow issues and the fact that they're not getting the income they need to get, be put out of business. What's that going to do? Maybe not immediately, but in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now, if those farmers go out of business.
What difference can Georgia make? I mean, we have come here with the idea that, look, Kemp's got an opportunity to save America if this works. How can we do that here?
Well, John, very simple. America needs to come together right now and get behind our national leader. That's President Donald Trump. He has done a yeoman's job under these conditions. Georgians need to get behind Governor Brian Kemp. We elected him. He's had a stellar record since he's been in office. You know, he's not a show horse. He's a workhorse. Mm-hmm. And he understands, I believe, has a pulse of the people. The sad thing about it is the liberal newspaper want to say, well, is this going to make him a failure, or is this going to make him successful? Why are we even talking about that? Why don't we just say, hey, let's continue to practice social distances. Let's continue to do those things that we've learned now on how we can combat this pandemic, and let's try to put people back to work. Local government coffers missing all that money. Where's that money going to come from? Mm-hmm. They're going to raise taxes. Nobody wants their taxes raised. The sales tax is going to be down. If you don't have a job, how are you going to pay your mortgage and your property taxes that you owed at the end of the year? So people are looking at those things. That's what the governor's looking at. Where are they going to go get that income from? They're going to go back to families and raise taxes. And, I think Brian Trump is on the right path. Again, that's why I say it's so important. He's listening to his public health officials. He's listening to the science. We've been educated across the board on what this is, what causes it, where it's coming from, and how we can deal with it. We don't have a cure yet. More and more people are living who's had the coronavirus than who have passed.
And we also understand who the most vulnerable people in society are.
Yes.
Older
Yes.
people, those who compromise health.
Yes.
I told Jenny Beth earlier before you were here, my mom came to live with us now. She's 91. She got back from rehab after breaking her hip. She can't live by herself. So she's 91, right? She's senior, compromised health, whatever, stays with us. Well, I don't let any of her friends come in and see her without putting a mask on, right? And there's a bigger proponent of opening up the business but me. But I have to protect my 91-year-old mom. So if somebody else is carrying it, we know we don't, because we take our temperature every day. But if all of her friends want to come in and see her, whatever, I'm like, that's fine. You got to wear a mask, because our job is to protect those vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't ask anybody to wear a mask when they're seeing my 15-year-old strapping athlete baseball player's son, right? I mean, even if he got it, he wouldn't show signs, and if he did, it would be a flu, and he'd get over it in a week. So, I mean, that's where you just have to be smart about this.
You really do have to be smart about it. I think one of the things that Georgians are going to be able to show, first, I think, even to our own neighbors and then to the rest of America, is that we can go out, we can practice social distancing. The businesses right now, it's not like they're open the way they were 8 weeks ago. It's still basic minimum operations, and social distancing has to be observed. But we can go out and do those things and still
be smart about it.
Be smart about it.
Now, the other concern is, and we've only got a minute here, but the other concern I've got is demand. Is the demand going to come back? I mean, that's one of the things I got. I talked to my friend, former speaker Mark Burkholder yesterday, and I'm like, let's go to dinner or be wild and crazy, tonight. And he's like, well, we got to find a place that's open, because he said, you got to understand. A lot of these restaurants are not opening because they're afraid they're going to staff it. Nobody will come. So we have to be concerned about the demand side. All right, we're out of time for this segment. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are with State Representative Democrat Vernon Jones from DeKalb County. We are with Jenny Beth Martin, Honorary Chairman, Tea Party Patriots Action, State Senator Brandon Beach, and Bernie Tokars. Well, they're going to join us next. After that, Ginger Howard. She's the chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia. All right here on your roundtable, live in Atlanta.